This is not a dupe because it's better than the original.
Tell me they aren't the same. Tell me. They're literally the same.
A quick scroll through videos like these ones on TikTok prove there's a cheaper alternative for nearly every luxury item imaginable. Since its inception, the hashtag dupe, short for duplicate, has been viewed on TikTok over 4 billion times. It begs the question, why invest thousands in a designer handbag when you can discover a strikingly similar one for less than $50?
Here is my Bottega bag. This is gonna run you though like $2,200. And then here's the Amazon dupe. It's slightly bigger and the edges are a little bit more squared. But honestly, if you just kind of push them in, I feel like no one will know.
So not everyone wants to spend that. So I'm gonna show you my favorite dupe. This was $20. They both have that soft, buttery feel and they look very, very similar. So if you're looking for a
this is Elizabeth Payton, the international styles correspondent for the New York Times. A dupe is an item that has similarities to a designer item, but doesn't actually copy the logos or the trademark features. And a dupe's purpose is that it's still distinguishable compared to the real thing. Dupes are generally not illegal, whereas a counterfeit or a fake is an item that's deliberately attempting to pass itself off as the real thing. And it's almost impossible to tell if it's a fake or not. And oftentimes people buy counterfeit thinking it's the real thing. And counterfeits are illegal.
We'll be taking a deeper dive into this with an intellectual property lawyer, but I wanted to start by asking you, Elizabeth, to give us an idea of just how big the dupe movement is.
From my point of view as a fashion journalist, at the moment it's got to a point where fashion PRs are emailing me with their products and marketing them as direct dupes of, say, Gucci or YSL, or giving me a dupe of the week, something which would be totally unthinkable even 2 years ago. I mean, there's always been Get the Look for Less columns. That's been a glossy magazine mainstay for a long time. But for things to be that brazen is a reflection, I guess, of how powerful this moment and obsession with dupes and counterfeits has become. The idea of creating imitations of like something of value has been around for a really long time. But e-commerce in particular, the rise of buying things online, meant that fewer consumers were looking at products physically when they bought them. So that increased the level of fakes. And of course, it made fakes, both dupes and counterfeits, much more accessible to consumers. At the moment, it's acceptable or even cool to be finding yourself a bargain rather than buying the real thing. And that's really been driven a lot by the platform TikTok.
Fashion journalist Elizabeth Payton there. Now the TikTok trend has reached such heights that it has become a common sight to see young people wandering through discount stores, presenting any random pleather or plastic item as a designer dupe for comic effect.
Nike Dunks dupe, Victoria's Secret dupe.
Although content like this is undoubtedly entertaining, dupe culture serves a deeper purpose for a price-conscious generation of shoppers who are continuously showing themselves off on social media.
One of my favourite things to do is if I fall in love with an item in a shop and it's out of my price range, I'll go online. I can always do a reverse image search and find a dupe for so much cheaper.
Jenny is a trainee teacher from Dorset in England. She made a trip to London's famous Bond Street to explore designer fashion houses, including Gucci, Chanel and Dolce & Gabbana. When we met, I noticed that Jenny was walking around empty-handed, with not one shopping bag in sight. She admitted that her intention was not to buy anything genuine, but rather to seek inspiration for sourcing designer dupes later online.
When I go onto TikTok, I can see loads of other people doing the same thing. People share recommendations about the top 10 dupes to get. It's so easy to do.
So are you generally satisfied, would you say, with the quality of the products you buy?
Sometimes the quality is not as good, but 9 times out of 10, it's just as good as the product I saw in the shop.
Just a few years ago, showing off designer splurges on social media was the golden ticket to amassing thousands of devoted followers. However, for young shoppers like Jenny, the new currency is all about snagging a deal and demonstrating to their followers how they can do the same. So what has caused such a profound shift in consumer culture? Before we return to my conversation with Jenny, let's hear from Katie Barron, content director at Stylist Media Group.
You know, this is spanning from being in lockdown, from being in the pandemic, from the fact that, you know, we've hit this mega cost of living crisis. We're beating the system, we're pushing back, you know, young people not having a whole load of control necessarily.
What other factors are at play here?
We've seen a shift where people have started to actually not be entirely convinced about the differences between expensive products and their cheaper brand versions themselves, which is part of the sort of Zarification of the high street, if you like. The idea of sort of buying into fake goods has actually now got a certain cachet to it. Part of the appeal of dupe culture, I think, is people playing around with it and the kind of fun factor and the fact of this idea of frugal cool, as it's been called. Frugal is actually becoming a compliment.
When I was growing up, buying imitation products was mostly done on the sly with an aim to pass it off as the real thing. So things are clearly very different now.
Absolutely. There was always a kind of stigma. It was the thing about, you know, not wanting to go to school, not wearing, you know, the same Nike trainers that other people have got. You don't necessarily want your kind of knockoff supermarket versions. Whereas now we're seeing, because of this sort of backlash and because of this kudos attached to being seen as a savvy shopper, or someone that knows how to, you know, hack the system or to kind of create a workaround to create the product yourself, it's actually seen as a really creative endeavour.
Yes, this movement isn't just about shopping for cheaper products. Lots of influencers are also offering tips and tricks to make certain cult products yourself.
Yeah, and of course, particularly when you're talking about younger generations like Gen Z, they really, really valorise that sense of creativity. So there is an American called Cindy Lou, and what she does with her TikTok followers is she shows them how to mimic items from really super popular fashion brands. So things like the American label, fashion label Reformation. So she'll show you how to make a particular dress, and she might do things like share free sewing patterns for the projects, and she'll link them to the websites.
Today we're going to make a detachable faux fur collar to turn these into this. Fold your fabric and line the middle of your fabric up with the folded edge and trace the curve. Sketch how wide you want your collar to be and cut it out. So
it's basically giving you all the tools that you need to create something that you might have seen probably on Instagram, something that you know your followers love but couldn't quite afford. We are in the era of the consumer creator. People actually love, particularly young people, having a say in the brands that they're consuming and feeling like they're interacting with them. So on a micro level, on some sort of level, there is this sense of people actually kind of getting involved.
Stylist Katie Barron there. Let's now return to Bond Street, where Jenny is showing me some of her TikTok content. In one of your most recent video uploads on TikTok that you just showed me, you're dancing around your bedroom in a new pair of yoga pants. Why is this purchase so special?
My mum recently bought me some Lululemons, which I absolutely loved. I wanted to get another pair, so I looked online and couldn't afford their price tag.
Instead of shelling out $100 for a second pair, Jenny decided to explore social media for alternatives. She stumbled upon a dupe being sold for less than a third of the original price, at around $30.
So then I bought a pair, absolutely love them. I can't tell any difference between them and my Lululemons, and no one would know the difference. They cost £25.
And they feel good and like they're going to last a long time?
Yeah, the quality's great. They feel exactly the same, with that really kind of soft fabric. Definitely not showing any underwear when you're doing a squat in the gym. Yeah, they're great.
Absolute confidence. Get into it. Lululemon Align.
Jenny is far from the only TikToker posting about her favourite Lululemon dupe.
Where fit follows your definition.
The athleisure giant has bagged more than 100 million references on the social media app. Rather than fight the movement and risk being perceived as a buzzkill, Lululemon decided to take a unique stance. They invited consumers to a 2-day dupe swap event at a shopping centre in California. The proposition was simple: bring in your imitation product and walk away with a legitimate pair from the label.
My name is Nikki Newberger, and I am the Chief Brand Officer at Lululemon. And in 2015, we launched the Align legging, which is a product that is often duplicated. So we executed our dupe swap event in LA at the Westfield Century City Mall in early May. We trialed and swapped 1,000 units of the Align legging, 25-inch black colorway, sizes 0 to 20 were available, which is our entire size range, and really invited people to bring in their dupe and put it to the test against ours. With higher quality, you're going to be able to wash these things, dry these things, and wear them into the ground over many, many years versus a dupe, which in large part has a lower price point because it's made quickly. It's made perhaps from not the highest quality fabrics and is probably more meant to be a trend piece, so something that's not made to last.
So there's a real eco-mindful angle. What did you do with the leggings that people brought in to trade in?
We partnered with a company called Dbrand. They took all of the dupes that were turned in and they recycle it and use it to produce other sort of non-sportswear products. So nothing went into the landfill or the trash.
Why do you think this particular product is so readily duplicated?
Duplicated, but never replicated, as we like to talk about it. I think the reason for that is the look of them is quite iconic with the yogo on the low back. And you see dupes putting their own logos and either other brands that you would recognize really taking some inspiration, let's say, from the logo placement on that low back placement.
We'll return to Nikki in a moment, because now seems like a good time to bring in a legal perspective.
My name's Kathy Hill, and I'm a partner in the intellectual property team at Mishkondareya. Unlike counterfeits, dupes don't claim to be the real thing. Because they don't feature brand names or trademarks, it's generally felt that no one's going to be confused into thinking that's a certain brand's product or that there's some association with that brand. There's a general feeling that you can buy a dupe guilt-free, but ultimately they're still trying to duplicate someone else's work. So there's an ethical as well as a legal question as to whether that's right.
How far can brand owners protect their designs in the face of dupe culture?
Essentially, the closer that the dupe is to an original, the more likely there is to be a claim. If they find that people are infringing their intellectual property rights, then they can sue them. That is obviously can be costly and time consuming and is a bit of a whack-a-mole approach sometimes. You look at how many dupes are out there in the market, and obviously they don't have an unlimited budget to go after what they would call our kind of knockoffs of their designs. So they have to really think strategically about what is the best kind of investment and use of that money to make the biggest impact. You know, brand owners also, I would say, are very conscious of not wanting to appear to be the kind of buzzkill bad guy in all of this, where a lot of young people will be saying, I haven't got any money, the economy is struggling, I just, want something that looks cool, like these influencers say it's fine, I trust them, I follow what they do, why shouldn't I be doing this? Everybody else is doing this. But it does start to, undermine the brand in a way, because the brand is obviously losing sales through these dupes being so popular.
Mishkondareya lawyer Cassandra Hill there. Although dupe culture can be problematic for brands and a legal grey area, the expression imitation is the sincerest form of flattery springs to mind. I asked Nikki, Lululemon's chief brand officer, if it's fair to say that dupe culture can contribute to the positive perception of the company.
Maybe there's a little bit lost in the short term, but I actually think long term there's a lot of great brand building that has come out of dupe culture that's benefited Lululemon and benefited the Align franchise. Anytime someone is sharing about an Align dupe, they're talking about Lululemon. It's validating our product as the original, as culturally relevant, and as stylish. So there's a lot of upside to that conversation for us.
Nikki Neuberger there. The luxury fashion industry in the US is currently valued at over $27 billion. The growing popularity of dupes not only threatens the exclusivity of this space, but also imposes significant environmental and societal costs.
What we're seeing with dupe culture is a real pushing of overproduction and overconsumption.
That's Sierra Barry, Policy and Campaign Manager at Fashion Revolution, which is the world's largest fashion activism movement.
So buying things that are trendy now, there might be something new tomorrow, next week, and these trends are kind of very fast evolving. So we need to think about the volume of waste that's producing And I think another angle of this is by its very nature, it's a really underground industry. So we know very little to nothing about the supply chains and the working conditions of the people that are making those clothes and those items.
Many people want to play into fashion trends, though, and participate in the world of luxury, even if they can't afford it. How can they be more mindful?
I know it can feel like buying into trends and buying into dupes and being able to participate in a way from a luxury industry you were maybe financially excluded from is like, this is a win, and maybe there's a bit of a thrill in being able to participate. It's a bit of a trap, actually. It feels like this is an access point and now I can buy these clothes I want and that will make me happier or maybe feel more included. But actually what we want to say is that slowing down and kind of opting out of this churn of overconsumption and overproduction and keeping up with trends actually in the research is very rooted in people self-reporting higher levels of well-being and feeling happier. The most sustainable thing you can do is just to love the clothes that you already have, look after them, honour the work of the woman who made them, just to really hold on to them.
Sierra Barry there, concluding this episode of Business Daily, which was presented and produced by me, Deborah Weitzmann,